The richest people in the world, I'm talking about the millionaires and the billionaires, actually own millions and millions of dollars of assets, sometimes billions, but they actually, at the end of the day, don't own anything. Why would this be? Well, I'm just going to tell you a quick story. So let's just hypothetically say that, hey, I was driving my Model S, my Tesla, and I was driving out in front of a Target. Well, I ended up being on my phone, distracted driving. I ended up running into somebody, bumping them, hopefully not running over there and killing them. But if that was the case, why would it be important that my Tesla wasn't owned by my personal name? Remember, you have insurances protecting you on your car. You have, we pay for insurance for that specific reason. If something happens, it's an incidental type thing. Well, there's things for bodily injury. There's things for collision. There's things for comprehensive, car insurance reasons, right? And bodily injury. That's you pay for that insurance for those protections. There's only certain limits to those insurances. Now, if you end up killing the person, if they were very important, you might have a lot of attorneys after them. And you're like, oh, this is for the insurance to deal with the problem. But not in all cases. Now, if that Tesla was sitting in my personal name, guess what? That insurance is going to cap out at a certain maximum. Every state has probably a little different maximum and what that looks like to them. But the most important moral of the story is that if it was in my personal name, guess what they're going after next? The next personal item that I own. And that's why it's so important that as the rich or the wealthy or the millionaires and billionaires out there actually don't own anything. They don't own the yacht. They don't own the plane. Some other management company owns that asset. And that's purely from a protection standpoint. So if something does happen, they can't go after them personally. From a legal standpoint and actually attack them. So here's how you end up setting up things. And let's talk about things in maybe you could say in your personal life. You could set up your home in an entity. It really doesn't matter. You can even if your mortgage is your name, at the end of the day, you're the guarantor and probably the owner of the entity, but it does help protect yourself. Now, in a lot of cases, even people have their homes in their personal names. They have their cars in their personal names. But if you're on the really wealthy side of this, or if you're trending to own a lot of assets one day, good to actually get that protection outside, because at the end of the day, it's just going to cause people will come after you. And it's amazing what people will do just come after it. The lawyers, the attorneys will come after you. And it's just really sad to see. So the wealthy really position themselves where they start putting buckets, right? Like if we had our car and our home and our personal assets in this bucket management entity, and it was just sitting there, that's just where we want it to sit. But we also maybe we have some fourplexes, and maybe we have some duplexes and different real estate assets. What are those sitting in? Well, you actually have a couple different protections for things like an asset, because if you were to put an apartment building in your personal name, there's lots of this happening. What happens if they come after you? And it's likely that tenants, you don't know all the people living there. If it's a 100-unit building and it's a Class C environment, you're leaving yourself at a lot of risk, and you should have that in a proper LLC. And every building should have its own LLC. If you have 100 units or a fourplex and maybe another fourplex somewhere else, if you start just colliding these all in the same entity, and if you're in the Class D, C, low B, those types of environments where you have tenants that maybe are a little more iffy than Class A environments. And Class A environments can come with plenty of lawsuits too. So I'm not saying that it's not, but make sure you're protecting your assets individually by creating new LLCs, new protection for each of those. And even to go a step further, if you own those real estate assets, even having a holding company with an LLC that actually owns that entity. So say it's 𝗨𝗨𝗍𝗶𝗍 LLC, and that's where you buy this real estate asset in, and 𝗨𝗨𝗍, you need to have a protection. Another layer of protection would be having, if instead of you owning, the owner of the building, say, hey, I own this building. This is so-and-so, because those are public records. They can actually come after you. If you own it with another holding LLC, Now you have another protection. So now it's going to say XYZ LLC owns it by my holding company. And that's how you invest into all your real estate assets. And many different business owners have this mix, just different layers, right? You have trusts. You can go, the trust is ultimate protection at the end of the day. You have equity LLCs where you just own equity of that building, and maybe an equity of a partnership and equity and then you have the property LLCs. So then you have these layers of protection. And that's why the rich always own nothing. And many times there's layers of protection in place. That way you can hold on to the money that you keep, even if you're starting out. If I were to start all the way back to ground zero, where I only had 1 or 2 assets and I was like, oh, I just put it in, my personal name. Why not? Or, why I would have not done that. I would at least set up one LLC where it's, hey, this is the LLC where I am owning 5 single family homes, and it's, single family housing LLC. And I have single family LLC and it owns 5 homes in a specific area. Maybe they're all within a couple blocks of each other. That's great. But I would have created another entity saying I go buy a 32-plex or something of the nature. I would have created another LLC for that, for the protection. And I would own those 2 LLCs with my holdings LLC, another layer of protection. And then you can go another layer where your holdings LLC is actually held by a trust, something I'm focusing on this year because you create these layers of protections. It's to protect your family. It's protect you from other people who are, out to get you, attorneys, whatever, and things that will own your personal name. So just understand that is part of the process with protection. No one ever thinks about this, right? When you're just, I'm going to get into real estate and I'm just going to start buying and flipping. Hey, that's great. There's some risk to that too. What happens if a subcontractor, someone who's flipping the home, hurts themselves? Well, if you don't have underneath some kind of LLC and the contractor really doesn't have a whole lot in place because you're just flipping, you're trying to keep everything minimum expenses as possible, then have protection. Have an LLC that just flips homes. And leave that bucket there. Then have another bucket that just holds real estate. And then have another bucket where maybe you own multiple pieces of real estate. You gotta have multiple LLCs for each of those pieces of real estate. Just understanding that. But don't understand that you just need to create one property LLC. And every time you buy a new property, it's XYZ LLC and the next property. And all of a sudden you have 2,000 units underneath XYZ because you're likely to see a lawsuit and they're going after the entire portfolio. Every time you're buying a new building, you should be opening up an LLC. It's a protection thing. Is it going to cost you money? Yes. Is it going to cost you a lot less money than someone suing you and going after those? Hell yes. So just understand that and understand the layers of protections that you need. 𝗨হি𝗳cie𝗹𝗹𝗍, guy that helps me a lot. I can share a link below. He'll help cover multiple ways that you can protect yourself. And especially if you're going to grow yourself in assets and if you're going to have businesses and you're going to have real estate portfolio and you're going to have all these different investment entities or, however big you're thinking, make sure you have the layers of protection set up from an early standpoint. Don't just have 1 or 2 LLCs. You should be if you're going to be creating and building a portfolio and building a legacy, make sure you have that protection in place because the last thing you want, something bad to happen. And why the rich protect themselves from all of the riffraff is how they do the layers of protection. It's very hard because even if you're going to go attack Bill Gates and some of his farmland, not sure what you're going to do with that, but there's going to be layers of protection before you ever actually get to him. And that's that's exactly how the rich protect their wealth. And that's exactly how you should think about if you're thinking about building a portfolio. See you in the next one.